Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have Andy Lefevre with me here today.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Thank you. Yeah, Andy's the executive director of the Arizona Criminal Justice Commission, faculty at GCU, among other titles. He's a very busy guy. He's an experienced leader with expertise in launching successful government relations, communications, fundraising initiatives to achieve organizational goals at national, state, and local levels. Extensive background in criminal justice and education policy issues, and effective communication with members of print and broadcast media. Thank you. Welcome to the show, Andy.
It's great to be here.
That's a lot of stuff. You wear a lot of hats. Can you break down sort of which hats you wear the most right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's well, when you have a long career, your resume gets really long and sounds way more impressive than it may be at times. But yeah, as the director for the Criminal Justice Commission here in Arizona, I'm really more of a leader for the 25 members that work on this team. So, sometimes that equates itself into being down at the legislature and dealing with our elected officials and trying to talk about policy priorities that we're trying to change for the state to make safer communities. Sometimes it's dealing with the media and trying to talk about the things that we're doing that make a difference so that they're aware of them. And oftentimes it's just being out and about. I often say that my main job here at the commission for the members and the people that we represent is I'm really a chief dot connector. I'm trying to understand how things fit together and how we can make a difference in what other people are trying to work on.
Okay. And what are the current initiatives or programs that are at the top of the list right now for the commission, but also things that you're just generally excited about for the next 12 months?
Yeah, we have a couple of main program areas here that we work on at the commission that benefit the citizens of Arizona. The big one that we do that most folks aren't aware of is we administer the state's victim compensation program, which means if you're a victim of a crime and you run out of an ability to pay the costs, so medical costs or funeral costs or things like that, we have a program that folks can apply to that can step in and pay up to about $25,000 of costs to help you get over that through that victimization, pay for those costs, and hopefully help you begin to heal and come out the other side of that. So that's a great safety net on behalf of our citizens that we get to administer. We also have a program here that we call our Criminal Justice Systems Improvement Program, which is all we do is try and look for places where information doesn't flow well, systems don't talk well together. How can we make sure that our law enforcement officers have the right information when they're out on the streets to make sure they have the right individuals that have committed a crime and try and arrest them? So it's looking for ways that we can improve that, and we do that usually through a lot of federal grant dollars that we bring in to the state. And the thing we did there that's probably been most impactful is we did a complete rewrite of our victims, our system, where if you're a victim and you go to the courts and you need an order of protection, in the past that was a very paper-based system. We totally revamped that. It's now all computer-based for our citizens. So if you now need that protection, it's gone from taking about 30 days down to about 5 days. So trying to make sure that folks have that ability to have that protection. And then we do a lot of granting out of dollars to our law enforcement, prosecutions, courts, crime labs, and things like that. Again, just trying to make sure they have the resources that they need in order to help keep our citizens safe. So that's kind of where we fit into the overall picture for the state of what we do and how we try and make sure we have safer streets for everybody.
Okay. So you have so many programs going on. You just listed a couple. How do you spend a typical week right now? Do things come and go in different seasons? Do the projects have?
So yeah, we as a grantee, so we're the state administering agency for a number of federal grants that are formula grants. So grants that come to the states every year that we administer. So there's always a cycle and a seasons that we deal with that. Where we've got to apply for grants and then if we're awarded and then we grant them out to folks. So there's a process that we do. So our commission of 21 members meets about 6 times a year. So every other month, and we have a flow of business where we're presenting them information about grants that we've received that we want to fund and who applied and should we fund them. And ultimately, they're the ones that make the decisions on behalf of our citizens. So we definitely have a busy season when the legislature's meeting from January through usually May or June. That's a busy time for us. We do a lot of monitoring of laws that are getting considered and passed. And we also, one of the other programs we have is we have a state criminal justice statistical analysis center that is responsible for collecting and reporting on a lot of data around criminal justice issues so that our legislators have good data to make good policy decisions.
Okay, what are the hot topics right now in Arizona? For our viewers or listeners, it's election season. It's October 2024.
Yeah, no, it's obviously if you get beyond the federal issues of the border and things that impact a lot of us on a daily basis. A lot of what we're dealing with is really just around funding for criminal justice, funding for our courts and our prisons, funding for our sheriffs. We've been very involved with an ongoing conversation at our legislature about investing in what I would call our non-traditional criminal justice funding opportunities. So not just more money to build jails and prisons, but how are we investing state dollars in our county and local communities to make sure that if our criminal justice, our police come into contact with somebody on the front end of that process that maybe is really just in crisis, they're having a mental health or a substance abuse crisis, that we don't necessarily have to get them into the criminal justice system. We're able to direct them to other services that may help them get better or stay out of the criminal justice system. And then on the back end of that, how are we making sure that when folks are leaving prison or leaving jail, they have the kind of support services around them to make sure that they're not going to recidivate and commit crime again? Because if we can keep them from coming back, that's $1 we spend there is like $20 inside spending it on a jail. So, I give a lot of credit to our legislators for thinking differently over the last couple of years and really trying to look for ways that we can invest those dollars differently.
Right. More effectively, more efficiently. What are some of the biggest challenges you have at the commission right now, but also over your career? I'd like to talk about both of those, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I've been at the state now for since about 2013. Before that, I was in nonprofits my whole career. So, funding is always a challenge for any nonprofit, and for the government, it's still funding, but it's a different place where your funding comes from. Obviously, we don't actually get very little general fund money from the state. All of our funding comes from either grants. So we're applying and trying to go get grants and competing against other states for money. Or we have what's called special revenue. So we get fines and fees revenue, and that's what funds a lot of our programs here. So a lot of that is just a continual challenge to make sure you've got the dollars you need to try and meet the needs that's out there in the community. We have, for a long time in Arizona, not had enough money to help as many victims as we could help.
Right.
So, it's always a conversation with our members of the legislature about that, about how to make sure we have that safety net in place, since that's the safety net that they set up so that we can help those folks that really need that help at that time. And then it's really just, trying to be, a neutral party around a lot of the conversations that occur about what policy means and what it would change. Our commission, by its definition, is nonpartisan. We can't have any more than half of our members from one political party. So we try very hard to present data and information in a non-biased fashion. Our mantra is better data means better decisions. So we want to make sure that our policy members at the legislature here and at our local community levels have good data so that they can understand, if I want to change from A to B, it's going to mean this on the other end of that equation, so that they can make the best choices for their communities as possible.
Okay. It's interesting. Do you find that political moderation mandate helps the commission stay balanced, productive?
It's interesting because obviously, what's the old saying that's out there? It's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right? I mean, everybody can find something to say and support what they want to say and support. So it is interesting, and that's really a lot of the kind of how we've driven kind of that mandate for us, is because we'll have legislators that come to us and with 2 or 3 different reports on the same issue, and say
Right.
different things, and they really want to understand, like, well, what should I know? And so we try very
Right.
hard to make sure we're just saying, like, we're looking at it through this lens, and this lens says X. And so we
Right.
think that's a unbiased lens to look through. And so if you're going to make those changes, so, it can help and hurt. It depends on whether you're supporting somebody's idea or not sometimes, and what it means. But in general, I think we've been looked at, or are being looked at by members of the legislature as that, again, that expert, that non-biased party.
Okay.
The offices that have been set up all across the country and at the federal level to be that nonpartisan, that unbiased look at how something should be considered. So we take that very seriously, and the researchers that we hire are very proud of that fact, that we present that information in such a way.
Sure. Sure. Do you have any values or something that you keep prominent in your mission to make sure it stays that way?
Um, so the commission had, we when I first took over in 2016, we went through a pretty hefty strategic planning process, which I am a firm believer in creating a vision for your organization so that your folks understand what they're working towards. And we did that through working with our commission members that were appointed at that time. And they come up with a mission that said they wanted the Criminal Justice Commission to be the leading criminal justice resource agency for the state. And I'm like, wow, that's a big, lofty goal. But I'm like, so tell me what you mean by resources. How do
Right.
we become that? And what does that mean for you in resources? So they identified three main resources that they want us to look at. One, obviously, is funding. So how do we go and find more funding for criminal justice activities that benefit the state in a way that's productive? The second one is relationships. So how do we as a body work to bring the right folks together around the table to have the kinds of conversations that lead to productive measures and productive conversations to try and move the ball forward? And then the third one was really around data and information, and how do we make sure we have the right data? Because, I mean, data itself is useless. Data can lead to information, and information can lead to policy and decisions, but you've got to make sure you've got that unbiased data that people can rely on. So we take that very seriously at the
Okay.
commission, and we oftentimes will be said that we lean one way or the other, and my answer to always that is, show me a report where that you can say that, and if you can, then we'll certainly go back and take a closer look. But I would put any of the work we do up against anybody's opinion that we're not biased.
Okay. Okay. Switching gears a little bit, can you tell us a little bit about your background in criminal justice? Did you come into the Arizona Commission with a strong background
So
beforehand?
yeah, I've never actually been in law enforcement, or any of the, a prosecutor or an attorney or anything like that. When I got out of college, I went to DC and immediately began working in the nonprofit field in a small nonprofit that dealt with criminal justice and victims issues. So
Okay.
pretty much through my entire career, I've either worked in criminal justice policy areas, and then some educational areas. So what I bring, and what most of the folks here at the commission that work here bring, is a very strong policy background around criminal justice. And then we marry that with the folks that are appointed to the commission. So we have three chiefs of police, and we have three sheriffs, and we have three county attorneys, and we have a mayor and a county administrator and a judge, and the courts and the attorney general's office. We marry our practical policy and expertise with their on the ground practical expertise that they have of doing those jobs for hundreds of years. When you put all of them together and you look at that, and then we
Right.
say, hey, we think this would work from a policy standpoint. And usually they'll be like, yes, that's great, or no, that's crazy. That'll never work out on the street. Let me tell you what works in my office. And a lot of what we do is really go around the state and have those conversations with, it could be constables, it could be law enforcement, it could be the courts, and understand what's going on from a practical standpoint and how we can help make it better for them.
Okay. Okay. What's been one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career, whether it was in the nonprofit stage or after?
The thing that we deal with here, quite a bit, which I think has been consistent throughout my career, is I don't know if, and government is horrible at this, and we don't market ourselves. We don't tell our stories well.
Right.
So folks don't know what we do. When I took over this agency, The modus of operation was let's fly under the radar so nobody knows what we do. Therefore, nobody can yell at us was kind of the mindset that we worked under for a while. And I'm like, that doesn't work for me. I'm a former, PIO and public information guy. I want to get information out. So we've really spent a number of years here, reintroducing ourselves to the legislature, which, that's a constant process because there's always new folks getting elected every couple of years. Reintroducing ourselves to the community, to law enforcement and the prosecutors and public defenders and whatnot, so they know who we are. Because if they don't know who we are and what we do, it's really hard for them to understand how we can help them and how we can make a difference in what they do. And I think that is something that, government can, I've been involved in some really massive government projects that bring in all kinds of agencies and have been totally amazed at the amount of great work that can be done on behalf of the state that nobody ever knows about.
Right.
And that's frustrating sometimes because then all you have is people griping about how inefficient government is.
Right.
And we can be, don't get me wrong, we can be wholly inefficient sometimes, but we can do some really great things when you put that public service mindset together with folks that are trying to do great things for the citizens that we represent. Because at the end of the day, none of this is my money. I'm doing all of this on behalf of the citizens of Arizona.
Right.
And how do we make a difference in their lives? And so I think, helping them understand what we do and how we fit into that bigger picture is something that I think we struggle with on a daily basis. We have a grant right now that's Safer Community Act money that's all supposed to go out into the community to help prevent gun violence. I did put a quarter in the meter there. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's all supposed to be, reduce gun violence, and all of that should, as much of that should be going to small nonprofit organizations as we can get out the door. And we just don't know who they are. They don't know who we are at this point. So that's a
Right.
huge struggle for us is, how do we get them to understand this, that this is available to them,
Sure.
that we want to get it out to them, and that, we hope that we can work with them to get the money out there because, $15,000 can mean a huge difference at a local nonprofit out in Maryvale, that's working to get kids off the streets after school. Maybe they have a
Right.
boxing program or something like that, and they just need a little bit of help. And, that's
Right.
what that money's supposed to be for. So, that's probably been one of the things that I've seen consistently throughout
Okay.
my career is just, got to toot our own horn a little more.
Right.
And we got to do a better job of letting folks know what we do.
That was actually the topic. One of the topics on my last podcast was the importance of marketing, right? The failure to let people know of your product or service. You might as well not have it if they don't know it exists, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we actually, so with mentioning that skip money, one of the things we did, again, just trying to think differently. And again, not being coming from a long history of government, I try and run my agency as ungovernment-like as possible until I physically run into the government wall that you have to deal with sometimes through procurement or just, rules and stuff. But, one of the things we did was we were actually running a project ourselves with some of that money. And usually we just administer the dollars and work to efficiently get them out the door. But we're actually doing a joint project with Cox Communication around gun safety or safe storage of firearms and trying to just get the word out that, like Arizona is a very gun-rich culture. So there's guns here. We know that. But if you have a gun, you should certainly make sure you're storing it properly. So again, how do you keep guns out of the hands of kids? Because you got them safely locked away. If one of the ads that we're doing talks about, most folks that are going to either do something horrible with the gun or commit suicide, tell somebody about it or let somebody know in some way before it happens. So how are you aware and are listening for those kinds of signs and make sure you tell somebody if you see them. And then, one of them is, some of it's just around, like suicide. A lot of times suicide happens because the gun is readily available at that
Right.
point. If you've got it locked away, it does. Oftentimes those feelings pass relatively quickly. So, very proud of our partnership with Cox, and we're looking to continue that over the next couple of years. And it's called Gun Safety Saves Lives, and we're just trying to get the word out. How many guns are stolen out of cars because somebody leaves a gun in a car?
Right.
All of those guns usually end up committing some kind of crime at some point. So it's little changes that we can make. Little changes in attitude and opinions that if we can make them, it ultimately makes everybody's lives safer.
Okay. And that's a a new initiative that's going to be running for a couple of years with Cox?
Yeah, we just released it this year. So it's been running for a couple of months now, and then we'll probably update the messaging of it every year that we have more of this funding coming through.
Okay, that's another example of another great program. You guys are going to have a lot of great impact through. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Again, I'm not a huge understanding of what all the metrics mean, but they say we're getting a great watch through rate, and folks are watching that as instead of just clicking through it and stuff like that.
Okay, excellent. I like to have a reflection question here on to my guests. What do you wish you knew sooner or earlier in your career about building wealth and success?
I think for me, it really comes down to, you hear a lot of times that if you go and find what you're passionate about, it'll lead to success. And I believe that. I was a strong believer when my kids were young. I wanted them to see somebody get up and go to work every day, really liking what they did. Because I think if you like what you do and you're passionate about it, that will lead to success, and that will lead, not, government's never going to make you a wealthy person, but it will provide you with a good lifestyle. So I think, being in that mindset that it's not just about making a paycheck and paying your bills, but if you're doing something that you really love and you're doing something that you feel good about. And again, for me, my itch is I'm helping somebody. That's what I want to do every day, is feel like I'm doing something that improves somebody's lives somewhere. I get to do that, and I get to work with a number of folks in my office that I think feel that same way. And we put these projects together and we send these dollars out the door and we get the reports, and that could be the end of it. But it's how are you tying the results of what you've done back to the work that you did, so that your folks are feeling good about what you do. I think again, has led me to where I am today, which is the best job I've ever had, a good career and a good salary working with the state, and
Doing good stuff.
yeah. So again, I mean, it's I think it's what's your definition of wealth, maybe, is one question about
Sure.
it. And if I know anything, I'll retire from the state with a very nice pension and feel very taken care of, and go from there. And then who knows what my next chapter will be, and maybe that's where I'll focus in on doing something that I like to do, or that makes
Okay.
isn't necessarily doing something like what I do now.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Great answer. And one of my favorite definitions of success is living your values. Basically, it's simply put, right? And that can be, loving your family, helping your fellow man, all that stuff is that success.
I was really lucky when I got my MBA through Grand Canyon. And when I was going there, it was actually the Ken Blanchard School at that point. And Mr. Blanchard came and spoke a couple of times when I was going to school there. So my emphasis with my MBA was actually on leadership. And that's what I find most fascinating about any kind of job is, how do you lead and grow and motivate a team to do better at what they're doing, and providing them with the right resources. And it's not about me being successful. It really isn't. It's about making sure they're successful at what they do. And that's what drives the agency and helps us, become better every day at what we do.
Okay, excellent. Well, Andy Lefevre, thank you so much for your time today and sharing some insights into this. If people would like to learn more about you or the commission, what should they do?
The best place is to always check out our website, which is www.azcjc.gov, and you can learn all about the great work that the commission's doing there. And look forward to, again, I'm Chief Dot Connector, so if there's somebody out there listening and they see a way that they can get involved with any of our programs, please contact me and make sure we put you in touch with the right person.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching and listening. Thank you again to Andy Lefevre for joining me today. We appreciate you sharing your story and insights into success and impact in Phoenix.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much, Tim.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.